Hey, fifth grade. This is our only video for the week of May 4th through the 8th. We are going to still be working on your packet, and we're still going to be working with those type of problems that we have to know about the vocabulary that it's telling us in the problem. So we need to know sum, difference, total, things like altogether, quotient, product, each, things like how many more, those kind of things that we've learned before. So go ahead, if you don't have your packet, grab it real quick. You're going to need a pencil. This is the page that we did last time. Remember all of the thinking that we had to go through and the different types of strategies that we had to go through. But we're going to be on page 77 today. So I'm going to circle that up. That was right after what we did the last time on our last video, which was page 76. So we're going to dig right in. We've had a few weeks of practice on this. So I want you to see if you can have less help than what I've been giving before. Remember, sometimes you have to make an organized list. Sometimes you have to guess and check. There's all different strategies out there. Find one that matches your problem. But most importantly, you need to do your cube strategy first. So on number 1, I will go through the cube strategy with you, okay? Miss Jones bought 4 dozen pencils, and Mr. Miller bought 6 dozen pencils. Which equation can be used to find P, how many more pencils Mr. Miller bought than Miss Miller? Well, we're going to come back up here and we're going to go through the things that we need to circle and underline. I'm going to make a little skinnier pen for this. And it says Miss Jones, so I'm going to underline her, bought 4 dozen. And we have Mr. Miller, who bought 6 dozen. We know those are pencils. Which equation can be used to find P? So that's what we're finding. How many more? Ooh, there's something. We learned that way back in 3rd grade. How many more pencils Mr. Miller bought than Miss Jones? We know Mr. Miller is bigger because he bought, or his amount of pencils is bigger because he bought 6 dozen and she bought 4 dozen. So we're going to have to do something with those and a how many more. Take your time. Find which one of these would be the answer, but I want you to do some thinking off to the side of your page too. So right now, pause the video. Once you think that you've worked out the answer, I'd like for you to turn the video back on. So right now, pause, do your work, figure your answer, and let's see if you got it correct. All right, did you find your answer? Now I have a little bit of my work over here, and let's talk this through. To organize my thoughts, I said, well, Mr. Miller, I put an M for him. He had 6 dozen pencils. Over here, I kind of wanted to know what that was. So that's 72. And Miss Jones had 4 dozen, and I know that that's 48. And so if I want to know the difference, I did want to subtract because it says how many more. Well, how many more did he buy? He bought 2 dozen more than her. And so I wanted to know what that was, just kind of in the back of my head, know that, and that's 24. So let's look over here. We could solve all of these and figure out which one equals 24, or we could just think through each one, okay? So if we look over here, it says P equals 6 plus 4, and then you do it times 12. Well, 6 plus 4 is easy. I might as well just figure that one up. That's a 10. But 10 times 12, yikes, that's going to be 120. There's no way. He didn't even start off with 120. He only has 2 dozen more, or 24 more than her. Let's take a look at the next one. We have another 10 right here. And then we have a 10 minus 12. No, that won't get us there. That would give us a negative number, and that wouldn't even make sense. We know he has more than her, so he couldn't have a negative amount. Let's go to C. P equals 6 minus 4 minus 12. Well, 6 minus 4 is 2. We're getting into that same thing again. 2 minus 12? That's a negative number, not our answer. Well, let's hope this last one is. So I have a 6 minus 4. That's 2. And if I multiply 2 times 12, what do I get? I get 24, which is what I came up with over here. So my answer is 24. Now let's look at number 2. I'm going to scoot up just a little bit for number 2. Number 2 isn't much harder. You just have to make sure you're understanding the vocabulary in these. So it says, we're doing our cubes, remember? Vanessa is collecting plastic bottles for a recycling project at school. She wants to collect 18 bottles. So far, she is 3 less than halfway to her goal. That sounded a little confusing, but we'll get back to that. How many total bottles has Vanessa collected? Let's come back up here and look at what we know. She wants to collect 18. So we know in the end she wants 18 bottles. So far, that gives us a clue. She has not collected 18. She is 3 less than halfway. I'm going to go ahead and box that. That's telling us what we have to do right there to her goal. How many total bottles has she collected? So she hasn't collected her 18, but she has some of them. Pause the video. Think your way through this a step at a time, especially through this part right here, 3 less than halfway. Pause the video, come right back when you have your answer. All right, did you think through that problem? So I know that she wants 18, so I made a note over here. I'm thinking through this, 18 bottles. She hasn't collected enough, but she is 3 less. Put a little arrow out here, okay? And I know that 3 less is going to be a minus 3. She's 3 less than halfway. And I know that half of something is a divide by 2. So if I split something in half, I'm dividing it into 2 pieces. So what I did was I took my total number that they said she wanted to have, and I said 18 divided by 2. Well, that got me the number 9. Notice that the number 9 is a choice. Yay! But it's not the answer. Because not only, she wasn't halfway, she was 3 less than halfway. So what I had to do was take halfway and subtract 3, or, minus 3, 3 less, and that would have gotten me the number 6. But notice how they put the wrong answer there. But it looks right for a second. So 6 is the answer. And see how you had to be very careful to notice every word in the problem. That's why we do the cube strategy. Now let's go to our next problem, number 3. Number 3 can be solved many different ways, but I'm going to go back to last week's section real quick. And on this one right here that we did, where we did a guess and check and a substitution, that's one thing that you can do for this problem also. You could do a guess and check. We know the problem, and we could guess and check each one of these into that problem. There's other ways that you can think through it. I'm just going to give you that idea in your head. Let's read it. What is the value of s in the equation 1/4 s, that means 1/4 times s, minus 2 equals 14? So I want, what is the value of s? And in here, if I read this the right way, I know that 1/4 in front of a number, or any number in front of a letter, means multiply. So I know that's 1/4 times s minus 2. And now my answer has to be 14. Just remember, if I'm multiplying by a fraction, that makes whatever this number is smaller. Remember to think that through. Multiplying by a fraction makes a number smaller. It kind of cuts it up. Well, I want you to stop the video or pause the video, find your answer, and I'm going to talk about a couple of ways that you could have figured out the answer to number 3. So pause now, come back when you think you have your answer. Okay, do you think you found your answer? Well, I'm kind of hiding what I did over here, but one of the ways that you could have solved this is to plug in each number down here as the s. So I could have said 1/4 times s minus 2, does that equal 14? 1/4 times 4 minus 2, does that equal 14? And I could have done that as many times as it had taken. So I'm going to show you what I came up with here. Okay, so if I replaced 1/4, or I did 1/4 times 3, remember I just need to put my 3 as a fraction, so I put it over 1. And to multiply fractions, we just multiply straight across, easy as that. So I got 3/4. Well, if this whole entire thing right here made 3/4, this number, this fraction, if I subtract 3/4 minus 2, well, 3/4 is a fraction. It's not even a whole number. There's no way it could be 14. So I started thinking to myself, well, I know for sure it's not 3. And if 3 was that far away, I'm going to have to try one of the bigger numbers. Or think of it this way. What number would have to go here in this mess right here? Minus 2, and it equals 14. So what number out there, if I subtract 2, equals 14? So if I kind of set that up right here, so what number does it have to be? Minus 2, and that's going to make a 14. Well, if I think of it that way, I have to have the number 16. So that means when I multiply, I need to make sure that when I'm multiplying my 1/4 times the s, that whenever I come up with the number 16, that's going to be the one, that's going to be the right one. So I started thinking through that, and I thought, you know what, since 3 was so small, why don't I just skip down and try the biggest one? So that's what I did. And so when I went through here, I did 1/4 times 64. So I made 64 the s, but I did have to put it over 1, had to change it into a fraction. So 1 times 64 is 64, 4 times 1 is 4, and then I just showed that little dividing bar right there because I knew that this was an improper fraction. When I divide 64 by 4, I got the number 16. So 64/4 is also known as 16. So once I figured that out, 16 minus 2 is 14. I found my answer right there. Okay. Now, final problem that we're going to try today, and it's number 4. On this one, a lot of information. You're going to have to make a list probably on this one. You're probably going to have to organize your thoughts. So make an organized list. Understand what each one of those things is going to look like. But let's do our cube strategy, and then I'm going to send you to try it and then come back. For a school fundraiser, Salvador sold 200 candy bars, which is 20 more candy bars than Lynn sold in 3 days. Lynn sold the same number of candy bars each day. Which diagram can be used to find the number of candy bars Lynn sold each day? Well, when we're looking for one certain thing, we need to remember that that's going to be our x. So our x is going to have to equal whatever this sentence told us it was going to equal. And it said that the diagram, which diagram can be used to find the number of candy bars Lynn sold each day. So my x is whatever Lynn sold. Each means one. So I'm going to put a 1 here in 1 day. Let's go back up here and figure out what else we know. Salvador sold 200 candy bars. His 200 candy bars is 20 more than what Lynn sold in 3 days. And Lynn sold the same number of candy bars each day. So her number has to be the exact same each day. So we know what our x is. We know the information we have. Write down what you know. Think about how that would look as a picture, and then choose your answer from there. So pause the video, come right back after you've solved. All right, did you figure out what you think the answer is? Let's look here, and I just drew a little picture just to make a picture in my head. I know that 1 day will be my x. So I made a box. There's my 1 day, there's my x. But up here it says that she sold for 3 days. So that means each x needs to be the same size because they said it was the same number of candy bars each day. So here's her 3 days, x, 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 with the boxes being the same size. Well, I have another person in this problem that I have to think about. So I have Salvador, I just called him Sal. Well, Sal's going to look exactly like Lynn, only he had 20 more. So he needs to have a plus 20 in there somewhere. So I need to figure out which one of these pictures looks like what I have. Well, oh, and I also know that when I do all of this for Sal, that his comes to a total of 200. So, oh, I'm going to have to squeeze that in there, aren't I? His comes to a total of 200. Well, so he has all of these things plus all of that, and that's all going to be 200 for him. Wow. So I have several things that look just like mine. 3 x's, 3 days. This one, and this one. But this one doesn't at all. This is like somebody's 1 day plus a 20. Nowhere there did Lynn, who is the x that we're trying to find, she didn't have just 1 day. She didn't have just 1 x. I know that can't be it, so I went ahead and marked it off right away. This one's looking pretty interesting though. I know that Sal looks exactly like Lynn, and Lynn has day 1, day 2, day 3. He looks exactly like hers and a little extra 20. That might be it. Let's come down here. Well, this has 3 x's plus a 20. That's what we want Sal to look like. But then there's this 200 down here. That would have to be Lynn then. Okay, and Lynn didn't sell 200. So he's the one who sold 200. He's the one who's supposed to equal 200. That doesn't work out. That's not what we want. Up here it does. It shows that he equals 200. That's not it. Let's come down here. This looks like Sal again. And he has to equal 200. And looking pretty good. And this whole entire strip equals 200. But if this is Sal, this would have to be Lynn. Or if this is Lynn, she never had a plus 20 on hers. And if this is Sal, that's great. but she didn't have a plus 20 at any time during our problem. So this looks pretty close if this were Sal, but then this couldn't be Lynn. So look, I had to look at it two different ways. Close, but not exact. So if you got A as your answer, you're exactly right. Well, I hope you had fun this week. Hope you're getting some math done. Hope you're visiting Study Island. It's a great help if you do. Sure do miss you guys. Hope y'all have a great rest of your week. And until I see you again, bye-bye.